Welcome back to Straight from the Soul, a podcast all about soul purpose, spirituality, and self-development. On this podcast, I love sharing the stories of people who are actually living their soul purpose. And today I have an absolute powerhouse with me. I am so excited for you guys to meet Gemma. Gemma, can you introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell us a little bit about who you are, what's it like in your world, what's going on?
Well, firstly, I'm an artist. I'm from Ireland. I've been living in Dubai for the last 10 years. It'll be 10 years this month. Wow. I've set up a business here, but really, I don't really stick to like any of those identities as such. A bit of everything.
I love that. And I love that. And I know we're going to share more about these different layers and expressions of who you are. And so one of the things that I feel like we connected on is that we first came out to the UAE as teachers.
That's right.
Right. Like yeah. I forget that sometimes,
yeah.
But I remember, so I came out as an English teacher,
yeah.
You came out as an art teacher.
Yeah.
But things went in totally different directions.
Completely. You're actually in my like bank of like teachers that I know that have set up their own businesses, because I've like met more and more over the years.
Amazing.
And I'm like, because a lot of people like come to me with like questions about setting up a business or going in a different direction from like their education career. Okay. And I'm like, okay, there are a lot of people here that do stuff, and you're one of them. So yeah, you've smashed it as well.
I love that. I love it. So guys, if you're out here as a teacher, just know it don't have to stay a teacher. But I wanted to hear, I would love for you to share with the listeners your journey from teaching into I don't know, like to say multi-mogul entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, the journey kind of started back in Ireland and London. That's where I was living before I was in Australia and then the UAE. And I worked as an artist full time for, I guess, probably about like 3-4 years. The economy completely crashed. So this was like the financial crisis back in like 2008, 2009. And I thought I was just going to be a painter for life, because when I came out of university, I actually was doing well, like working with galleries, selling paintings. So I was like, great, set for life. This is me, all good. Yeah. And when the economy crashed, art was one of the first markets to just collapse, because nobody wants to invest in art. Art's a luxury. No one wants to buy it. And all of the galleries started closing down. All of the government funding for artists stopped. Wow. So I had to like quickly figure out like, what am I going to do here as a backup? Like, what else can I do? And obviously teaching art is a great option, because you're still doing something that you love, and it's like a vital skill. Like everyone needs teachers and educators. So I came here as my first teaching job, essentially.
I love it.
Yeah, so it wasn't really part of the plan initially, but I felt when I did my teaching practice, I really enjoyed it. I came out here, and to be honest, like the teaching here, I didn't really feel like it fulfilled me in my personal circumstances. And that's obviously not across the board. But for me, like it just wasn't, it wasn't fulfilling in the way I had hoped it would be. Yeah. So I actually set up Design and Dine as a hobby on the side of teaching. And we had this crazy organic growth in the first 6 months, where it went from 14 people in a little art class to like 100 people, and like sell out events every month in the first 6 months. So then I was like, okay, now I need to form my exit strategy. Yeah. So I kind of juggled teaching and running Design and Dine at the same time, until I felt like comfortable and secure enough to be able to like quit teaching and go full time with the business. And that was like maybe 6-7 years ago that I like quit teaching.
Wow.
And then the rest is history.
I love that, because I think that people think that there's like only one way to do this, but I always like to say there's many ways. And you are what I like to call a transitioner. And I think that's totally a great way to build a business. Is like, you have your day job, but you also know that this is something you want to get into. So you start testing it out, right? You start to get into experiments.
Yeah. And you don't need to take risks. Yeah, you don't need to take risks. Like I was, and right now Design and Dine is going really well, but there are other projects that I'm doing. And I'm not going to just stop Design and Dine and just start these other projects. Like you introduce a little bit of what you want or what you want to experiment with. Maybe like it's a business idea or a passion project or something. If you introduce that and put the time in while you're still working in your other job, you can, like you say, transition with very little risk. And that's honestly how I would recommend it for most people.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, because I like sometimes you're like, oh, you need to leap, you need to go all in. And I think for some people they do need to do that, but it doesn't have to be that way for everyone.
Yeah.
And I love hearing that you still have some projects and some things that you're developing and your businesses and your evolution is still going. But kind of looking back, I know it's been like an amazing ride. Any like key lessons or things that you've learned in these past kind of 7 years of Design and Dine that you would like to share with either maybe teachers trying to transition out or just people who want to get more creative?
Yeah, a lot of lessons.
Okay, let's pick like 2 or 3.
First of all, I would say ask for help. Like, don't do it on your own, because Design and Dine really wasn't meant to be a business.
Yeah.
I started it for fun. It became very profitable.
Yeah.
And then I kind of went, all right, I'm just going to go with this. And I didn't have a clue about how to run a business. I went to art college. Like, I formerly trained as a painter. And then I did a postgrad in teaching. But that's all I really knew was, you know, being an artist and being a teacher. And I always had like an entrepreneurial side, but I had no formal business training. Yeah. I had no idea about anything like accounts, advertising, testing the market, social media, like none of that. I had a clue. And I actually figured it out as I went along. So I did it like the long and the hard way. Luckily, I still loved it, even though it was challenging. Like, I was kind of obsessed with what I was doing. So that made it like okay. Yeah. But now, if I look back, I actually would have probably surrounded myself with more entrepreneurs and business owners that were ahead of me from the get-go. And now I do that. Like, a lot of my friends are successful business owners, entrepreneurs. Like, I gravitate towards those people and I learn a lot from them, and hopefully they can get something from me as well. But at the start, most of my friends were like still teachers. Mm-hmm. So I was very much in that kind of, I guess, that founder or entrepreneur loneliness of you being the person to just kind of figure it all out, and you feel very isolated sometimes. Now I'm in like loads of different business networks, and if I don't know something, then I'll go and ask somebody for help.
Exactly.
And it took me a few years to get my first business coach. At the start, it was literally me saying to my friends, do you want to come work at my event and like you'll get a free brunch? And they were like, yeah, okay.
It worked though. So
I had like no staff for years. It was literally like me just feeding my friends cocktails in exchange for labour. But now obviously I have a full operations team. I have ad managers, I have instructors and teachers, an admin assistant. We've scaled to like loads of different countries. So now it's very professional. But at the start it took me, it was fine, like business was growing, but it took me a while to figure out you need to go and get a professional or an expert to tell you what to do next. Otherwise, you're going to be going along, but you're not going to grow. You're not going to scale. Yeah. You're not going to improve the business, how the business runs and how the revenue grows. So after I went to my first couple of business coaches, oh my God, I was like, they gave me advice that was so simple. Yeah. And
but it's just I was like you have a blind spot, right? Sometimes you have a blind spot and then someone comes in and you're just like this and you're like,
because you only know what you know. Yeah. And like, they give me such simple advice. They were like, why are you cleaning your brushes at the end of the event? I'm like, well, it's my event. And they're like, hire someone to clean up. You should be talking to your clients and customers. And I was like, I know this, but why did I just not even think to do this straight away? Just really silly stuff like that, because you're just, like you say, blindsided. And my whole kind of business strategy changed after I got coaches. Yeah. And I continue to, like, now I still work with coaches for like a higher level for like scaling and for like financial, like investing, finance, that kind of thing. So go to the experts.
I'm there with you 100%. Obviously a coach here, but like in a different way. And I definitely see, like, when I do something by myself versus when I get help from an expert who's done this 100 times 10 years ago, it just clicks.
It's such a small investment because you can, you know, you pay for your coach and you have like a lifetime worth of knowledge or a whole lifetime worth of change in your life or your business or whatever it is that you're trying to do and improve on.
And so, like, that's great advice on like the kind of the professional side of things, coming over more on that personal side. Yeah. Any lessons there, any type of things or tools that kind of helped you through these challenging times? Because I mean, right, entrepreneurship, there's a little bit of, there's ups and downs, and like, it's important to have tools, both I think professionally and personally, to get you through these.
I think taking care of yourself, it sounds like such an obvious answer.
Absolutely. And so, like, I know we first met at a women's circle all about self-love. So that's kind of where I wanted to ask more about. And now that you're talking about self-care and all those things, is that something that like you had to learn getting into entrepreneurship, or was that kind of stuff you were already into, wellness and spirituality, or maybe it developed later on?
I think I was lucky, you know, that I always felt like quite confident in what I was doing, and I think that comes from being an artist. You just kind of have to be a bit like courageous or ballsy with your work, because you're creating something new and putting it out there to the world constantly.
Yeah.
And I think that carried out really well into the entrepreneurship world, because again, you're creating something, putting it out there. I think that you just have to follow your intuition. You have to be confident in yourself and not worry what others think about you. And yeah, just...
Is that something kind of maybe early on you had to get over? Like, because you said you were an artist from kind of like from birth or from early days, or from university, or
professionally from when I was 18. So during university, I started selling with galleries. But yeah, I was drawing and painting my whole life. When you're a kid though, you don't notice, you don't care. You just put stuff out there and you draw and you create and you dance freely, and you're not self-conscious. But I think now in this day and age, especially with like social media, people are very kind of, I don't know, I guess they overthink about like how they're perceived.
Yeah.
And I think that you just have to, like, if you have something that you want to do, you just have to go for it and not worry so much about like what other people think. And that does relate to self-love, because it's about you and what you want to do in the world.
Yeah. And I like, for your example, I feel like maybe you're someone who has kind of like born knowing what they want to do, which I think is such an amazing path. But sometimes it takes people a little bit of time to figure it out. And that's something I always like to share, is that like, yeah, everyone has a different path. But even for you, like, you knew you wanted to be an artist, but maybe you didn't know that you were going to create Design and Dine, right?
I had no idea. So I lived in Australia. I had a year in Australia where I trained to be a teacher. I wasn't really ready to be a teacher, so I just left Ireland and just went traveling for like a year and a half, and I had no money. I was sleeping in hostels. And back when I started Design and Dine, like it was almost 10 years ago, I liked to have fun. I wasn't like a serious, pretentious artist. Like, I liked to party. I liked to bring people together. I liked to socialize, but I also was like completely obsessed with art. That was my life.
Yeah.
So I was like, if I'm going to do an art class, it's not going to be a boring one where we're all going to do the same painting. We're going to sit in silence. We're going to listen to classical music, and it's going to be dry. You're going to have wine. You're going to have fun.
I love it.
There's going to be good energy music.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to be chatting. I don't like, that's not my vibe. So I kind of merged my passion of like socializing, having fun, and art, and like put them together into Design and Dine. That's what made it, a unique experience, because I wasn't trying to emulate like what other art schools or art classes were doing. I was making it my own thing based on like my personality.
So guys, I won't make you say it, but I'll say it. She was the original paint and wine creator here, and then everyone else came along.
Yeah, no, it's a thing.
But I love, because I mean, nowadays in Dubai, if anyone's listening and it's not in Dubai, like, you can find these concepts all over, but we have the original here. But I really love, because this came from you combining different parts that you enjoy by yourself. And I think that's something that I just get so annoyed with. The people are like, oh, you're this, so you only can do that. But you were like, no, I'm this and I'm this, and we're going to do this.
Exactly.
And look what happened. And, and like, that's exactly the way we're meant to live life.
100%. At the start of Design and Dine, I was like, we're going to listen to house music. We're going to listen to R&B. And people probably think, but that doesn't really go with fine art. That doesn't really go with painting, but it does, because that's what I thought was going to be fun, and it was fun. So
And then you did, like, just recently the Barbie brunch last year, which was like so major. And then we have Taylor Swift and we have Harry Potter. They're all sold out.
Exactly. Yeah.
But here you are again, like what you're coming back to what you said earlier, is like, you're making art fun. Like,
exactly.
I get it. It's cool. Yeah, I'm sure to go to a gallery and like, be a little fancy, but that's not the only way to experience art.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think me and you've talked about this before, but people believe that they're not creative, or that they don't have like that they think they don't have an creative skill or anything like that. But when I went to school, in our generation, you weren't really sat down. I don't know what it was like in Hawaii, but definitely in Ireland and the UK, when I taught in the UK as well, you weren't really sat down and taught exactly how to paint or exactly how to create an artwork. It was kind of like, okay, draw these flowers, draw this fruit bowl. Yeah. And if you couldn't do it, it was like, okay, you're not good at art, so move on and do something else. Like, do something academic, do sports, do technology, whatever. And I think that's so sad, because then you have all these adults who actually think that they're not good at art. So the thing that I love most about Design and Dine is when we get people in the door, first of all, they're like, I can't draw a stick man, I'm so bad at it. Like, I can't do art. And I'm like, no, it's okay. This is like, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
And then when you teach them how to mix a color, how to apply a brush stroke, like the process of creating a piece of art from scratch, they realize that they are an artist. Like they think they're so bad, they think they're incapable of doing it, and then they leave after a 3-hour event where they've also had a brunch and like probably danced and met other people with a canvas, and they're like, I can't believe I made a piece of art. So I love that idea of like changing people's self-limiting beliefs. It's just amazing.
Absolutely. And like I know, like I grew up creative, and then I got all serious in my 20s and like was like hustle perfectionist life, and then started to come back into it. And I can honestly say, like, after we met and then I went to your brunches, I was like, there was like this like thing that unleashed, and like now I'll be at your brunches and you'll be painting this and I'll just be like in my own world, and I'm just it's so much fun once you let it out and kind of
I know
it.
It's
like,
crazy. Like you create the most beautiful art, and you didn't know it. Like when you came to Design and Dine, the first one, and you were actually teaching at one of the retreats, I think, and then you were speaking about self-love at one of them, and I came over to you and was like, Guy, are you an artist? Like, do you paint at home? And you were like, no,
this is it.
And it was stunning. So yeah, it's just being in that right environment, being at ease, having support around you, and like people that are friendly and inclusive, and just something comes out with people.
And I also love at your events, it's not just about art and creativity. Like there's this real sense of community.
Yeah.
Not just with Design and Dine, but also with the wellness retreats you do. Like it's so different, and you can tell, like, and I've experienced it too. Like you're there, you come alone, but you don't leave alone.
100%. Yeah.
Like, how did that just happen organically, or is that also something that's important to you when you're creating your events and everything?
Yeah, it's really important to me, actually. I think that especially the events that take place in this country, like a lot of people are alone in Dubai. They come over without their families, without a partner, with maybe they don't have like many friends. So I try to get this across, like communicating, you know, on our platforms, that you can come to Design and Dine alone. I want it to be that like safe place where you can just come and be creative. And we have what we call social tables, which is something I've always had in my events, where you can come alone, join a social table, and it's going to be like a big group and everybody's facing each other. There's no easels blocking off anybody's space, which is another rule I have, because that's so antisocial. So the canvases are flat on the table, and like you're alone, I'm alone, we're all painting. I'm like, oh, that's such a nice idea, I love that color. Oh, I love your design. Have you done this before? No, I've never painted before. Oh my God, me too, I'm so nervous. And then everybody bonds, and everybody's like best friends by the end. It's so beautiful.
It is, it's true, it does happen even with your retreats. And so the other thing that I wanted to talk about is getting into the retreats and to spirituality and wellness, because you do a lot of those retreats as well, and they're wellness oriented. So do you have like a specific, and I know that things change throughout your life, like any specific kind of like wellness routine, things that you come to that you found recently, or spiritual that you're like, this is my thing? Maybe just like right now, the things that are like
part of my daily routine, which is like a non-negotiable for me, which I only started doing in the last like few years. It took me a while to realize I needed this, but without it, like my stress levels, my happiness, like it's so different. So every day I make sure, like before I even open my laptop or go into my phone, that I work out, and that could be a walk, that could be a run. I love running. People think I'm a psychopath because I like run in Dubai in the heat, but it makes me so happy. And meditation. Yoga as well. I've fallen off the wagon a little bit with my yoga, but you can help me out with that.
As long as you're moving your body.
Yeah, but I think moving your body in the morning, getting outside, it's so important. Like I struggle a little bit when I go back to Ireland when it rains a lot. Like the sunshine for me is so important. So it's like, get up, go outside, get the sun on your face, do some movement in your body, even like a 2 or a 5 minute meditation, just to kind of like calm down and like get ready and be mindful for the day ahead. And that's it.
I love it. And I think like sometimes we like to overcomplicate things, and it's great if you want to be fancy and like have a 2-hour morning routine, but like I don't have time for that. But
life happens.
I've got stuff to do. But also, you've ran like what, 2-3 marathons?
I've run the full New York marathon, and then 3 half marathons in like London, Dubai, and where was the other one? I can't remember, but yeah, I've done a few.
I mean, props. Like no, I am not a runner, but that's also what I want to talk about, because I remember you put a post, or maybe you shared this on your stories, like after you did one of the marathons, you're like, I was never a runner. Is that true?
Yeah, and I talked about that at the retreat as well, because when we were talking about believing in yourself and like the self-limiting beliefs as well, like you just don't know what you're capable of. Because I remember living in Abu Dhabi when I was a teacher and trying to run like a 5k with someone who was like really sporty, and I was like ready to like I was ready to kill him, because I was like, I can't run that fast, like I can't run. And I was really struggling, and I couldn't get around the 5k. I felt like I was going to vomit, felt like I was going to pass out. And I always had this belief, the art thing, I'm good, but like sports and athletics, I always thought, it's just not me. I can't do it. I'm really not good. Tried to play football, was terrible at it. Tried to run, was just useless. And I started running a few years ago, and it was pretty tough at the start, but I was doing it because I was in a difficult place in life, and I realized that when I went for a run, I felt a little bit better, because you get that, like, I don't know if it's dopamine or
it's
serotonin,
the high, they say, or like the endorphins, or
it's like endorphins, the chemicals that are released in your brain, and runner's high is real. Like, so I was like, I feel a little bit better after that. And then I ran every day, because I was like, at least I feel a little bit better now after this run. And then all of a sudden I was like kind of fit. So I was like, oh, well, maybe try a 10k. And then I was able to do that. And then at the same time, coincidentally, my dad was like getting really into running again, and he signed us up for the New York Marathon. And to be honest, I don't know if I'm like delusional, but when he signed me up, I was like, yeah, I can do the marathon. Because I was already like, I'm a runner now, even though it was only 5Ks, the odd 10K. But yeah, I just kind of knew I would be able to do it. And then once the commitment was made, I just kind of dedicated a bit more time to training, and I did it, and I loved it, and then just caught the running bug. And it's such a huge part of my life now. And I notice on the days where I don't go for a run, I actually don't get that like high of the endorphins, the exercise endorphins, and like I don't feel myself. So it's had such a huge positive impact on like me, community, meeting other runners, my health, like mental health and physical health, and just like generally well-being.
And I like, that's what I love, and that's a lot of the things that I do with my work. It's like I tell people like to challenge your belief, and also just start to become aware of the things you tell yourself of like, oh, I'm not a runner, I'm not this, and I'm like giving yourself that shot. Like, for example, you were saying like, oh, I've never been good at sports, but then you really just made kind of like a full effort just to kind of get from point A to point B, right, and then B to C, and then you find out there's this whole thing running that you actually really, really love.
And I never would have thought, again, like when I was in Australia, like in a hostel, drinking wine from a bag, if someone told me you'll be a business owner, I'd be like, what? If someone told me you'll be running marathons, I'd be like, what? So you just don't know what you're capable of. And I always tell people, like, just go for it and kind of get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like, it's going to feel daunting. You're going to feel like a total beginner. You're going to feel like you're not good at it at the start, but like just persevere, because it is, you know, like to grow and to do incredible things, you do need to put yourself like way out of your comfort zone. But like, that's where the best things happen.
Yeah, it is. And I know that you have kind of this very go-getter energy, and also like human design people. I remember you're a manifester, which manifestors are like, they are oh my gosh, my last guest, he was also a manifester. Anyway, like I love go-getters, obviously. But was there any point where you were like, you know that's kind of who you are. Was there any point or thing in your life where it came up where you kind of like, you got into a little funk and you kind of lost that go-getterness? Was there any challenge that you had to go through, and kind of what helped you through that?
Yeah, I get that all the time, to be honest. Like I think if people saw what I'm doing, like running a business, like painting, doing shows, like all that, thank God she's always switched on. But I definitely have like ups and downs in life, and I used to be very self-critical and beat myself up if I was having like a bit of a slump or, you know, not being productive. And I kind of had to like unlearn that a lot and just allow myself to like remember you're human. Everybody has down days. Everybody has days where they find life, work, relationships, whatever it is, challenging. And just to like give yourself a bit of a break mentally. And just give myself a little bit of time to... you know, be like, okay, today's not going to be a good day, but that's okay. Because it's temporary. All emotion, all feeling is temporary. So now if I'm having like a bit of a funk, I'll just remember this is temporary. This is not defining. This isn't going to last very long. And like I was telling you before the summer, I had like a very stressful period. Sometimes what I do is change my location. So like during that, I was like, okay, everything is going mental at the minute. Everything possible is going wrong.
Yeah.
Which happens in life and business and whatever. So I was like, okay, I'm going to burn out if I try and just keep like running against the grain here. So I was like, okay, let me just go home, go spend time with family, just take a couple of weeks just to have like what you called it, a recalibration.
Yeah, a recalibration period, exactly.
And a bit of rest. And then I just, after a little bit of rest, a change in location and surrounding myself with good people, I think that's so important. Yeah. Everything just came back like 10 times better.
I know you are like kicking ass, and like that's something I feel like, you know, so many people see, they just see that Instagram highlight moment of our life, you know, like success. And a lot of times people think like success is like a linear journey, but like you as someone super successful in many areas of her life, like you just shared how, I have that little up and down every day, and it's about having it, but then still showing up the next day.
Yeah, exactly. You can allow yourself to recognize like, okay, I don't feel so good. This isn't great. I'm not going to dwell on it. I can allow myself a little bit of rest time and be like, okay, today it's not great. But like, like you say, still be professional and still show up the next day and be like, okay, today's a new day. And I think that thing about like people as well, like talking to someone who's maybe in the same, I have a couple of friends that are business owners that get it. It's usually work stress that I have. And I'm like, okay, this is going on, and they totally get it. And then you'll have a chat and they'll help, you know, and that can make a huge difference. So you're not just like suffering alone.
Yeah, and I think that that's another thing that's an important tool is like the community. Like you said, both for you intertwine that in Design and Dine, but also in your personal life. For sure, and like another important thing that you said, which every time people say, I don't care, you can say 1,000 times, I will never get sick of people saying that, like, when you're having a hard day, you need to be extra nice to yourself. You need to be extra kind to yourself. Yeah. That self-critic, that self-punishing thing, that doesn't work when you're having a bad day. That's the time you need to be the nicest. Yeah. That's when you need to take a step back. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy because like back in the day, I would have, you know, maybe had like an afternoon where I'm like, I'm so burnt out. Like I don't feel well. Like I'm so stressed, but wouldn't allow myself like an afternoon off. And then I'm like, you're not doing anybody any favors by continuing in like a stress mode to continue to like fight this battle. And like, you're the boss. Like, why are you doing like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, this is not like, I'm like, I'm the one, no one is forcing me to do anything in this life. No. Like everything that I'm doing right now in my life, it's my choice. Yeah. So then I'm like, also have a bit of personal responsibility. And if you feel burnt out or stressed, then take a day off. Like go sort your shit out and then come back and be a better person, you know? Yeah. So this question, I think, I was talking about it in my last episode, but I love to dissect this and get your opinion. So we're just talking about like, I know we're in Dubai and like everyone gets like, you know, the glitz, the glamour, everyone's like, so, which is great. But like, I would love to know like, what is your definition of success? Like what for you does success look or feel like? For me, I always say success for myself is a regulated nervous system. It means like, I'm not, like I don't care if I have millions of dollars. I don't, but yet exactly. If I'm stressed out, if I'm burnt out, that ain't success to me. So what would you say is your definition of success? It's so subjective and it's going to be personal to everybody. But absolutely. I have had periods where like the business is doing really well, like we're making, you know, incredible revenue, like things are going really well professionally, and like you would think, okay, I'm successful now. And also it's like my own business as well, which is so hard. Like so many businesses don't survive the first year. So I'm like, okay, there's longevity and there's like money coming in. And honestly, like in those times, like a lot of the times in the past, it was like me working really hard, being isolated, being the boss, like, and I actually was thinking back on like my first year of business, we were doing really well, but I was so isolated because I went from being like a teacher in the staff room with all my mates around me to just like me hustling. Yeah. And I was like, it was actually kind of a lonely year. Whereas like now I really make it a priority that I
balance things out. And of course we all want to be like successful and like be a millionaire and stuff, but not at the cost of like being isolated or being sleep deprived or anything like that. Like now I realize, and it took me a little bit of time to get there, but now I realize that like I want to be surrounded by my people, you know, I want to have like fulfillment. And personally for me that comes from feeling good in my body, so like sleeping, doing exercise, taking care of my well-being, and also just being around people that I love, that I like want to do life with. You know,
I totally get you. So I'm just kind of like summarizing for people. Success again, it is subjective, but I really resonate with a lot of the points you said. Is like balance of like having that, also like you said, having, you know, a healthy body, and also spending time with people you love and people that care about you. I kind of resonate with that a lot. I was very much like a lone wolf, like a rebel child. I didn't really run away from home. I know it's dramatic, but like I was, you know, living in Hawaii, and I ran away to New York, far away from my family. And I ran away to the other side of the world where I knew no one. But I'm really kind of coming back to like what you're saying is like nowadays, like I am so boring. I just want to go spend time with my family. Before it's like, oh, I want to go to this place. I want to climb this mountain. I want to, which is also really cool. But again, for me, and also kind of what you're sharing is everyone has their own definition of success. And it's about honoring your truth and what fills you up. Instead of kind of just trying like,
going along with, what like society expects. And I've been like, you know, I recognize like I'm so privileged. I've had a great life. I've been to a lot of incredible places, but I've been to all those like fancy parties and been bored. Like I've been to a lot of those like exclusive VIP events, like parties, and I'm like sat there going, I thought I wanted this, but I actually think I'd rather be in like a dingy pub with my mates that are actually good crack. And we're all laughing and chatting instead of everybody being on their phones and posing. Like, yeah, but sometimes you have to experience what you thought was success to be like, do you know what, this isn't actually all, it's not about this.
But the fact that you come back now to what truly is authentic and aligns to you, I think that's super important. And so coming back to kind of like your art, because like from day one you were an artist, but like was there any time, or do you ever, is this a thing, artist block, where you're just like no inspiration or no creativity, or is it constantly like no?
Artist's block is real.
Okay.
And I've had like long periods where I felt like I can't paint, like it's such a strong block, and it comes and goes, but there's a few strategies that I've put in place to kind of overcome it. And I think for creatives, whether it's like a writer, a choreographer, a songwriter, a painter, whatever, I think that we put like a lot of pressure on ourselves to be amazing, be like show our talent to the highest ability, impress people with it, and that kind of fear of like perfection, like not being good enough, and that perfectionism actually blocks people from making work. And I've been in that scenario before. I mean, I've always painted naturally, organically, and you know, right up until after I graduated. And then after I did a bit of traveling and stuff, I felt, I guess, maybe a bit lost. Like, what do I want to say? What am I trying to like create through my art here? And like that can be overwhelming when you don't really know. But I actually read a book called Big Magic. Have you heard of it? By Elizabeth Gilbert.
I haven't read it, but I've heard of it.
It's the same author that wrote Eat, Pray, Love, but this one is like a non-fiction, and it's actually for anybody creative, and that could be like a project manager, an entrepreneur, like anybody who's trying to do something, create something in their life. And it basically kind of says that you need to get it out of your head that you're creating for other people. Like if just like go and throw paint on a canvas, like dance around your living room, write out anything, like write a paragraph in your notebook and just see what comes out, because eventually something beautiful is going to come from it. And it's not really about like thinking, is this person going to find my work good? The work is great. The work's great. It's better to have work that's like authentic and you're just creating it from the heart, like, or from whatever, and like for it to exist, than have like no work at all. And when I read that book, I was like, wow, you know what, like the last year that I wasted not painting at all for fear of not being good enough, and like all the paintings that could have been created, all the art that could have been created, like, and I would have enjoyed the whole process anyway, because I love painting. And then now I just, even if I'm not really sure what I'm going to make, I just show up to the studio and I just start painting and see what happens. And I think that's, and then more often than not, you actually love, you always love the process, and you often love what comes from it as well.
I love that. So just from what you shared, it sounds like the thing that would lead you to artist blocks most of the time was kind of this like perfectionism kind of like mentality of it has to be perfect or like it's not good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And by kind of like deconstructing that, now you maybe have, I don't know, like you're more creative or you're more expressive or things come out easier. There's less writer's block when you remove that.
Exactly. You're just removing the pressure, and then you can get to like come into your work with a bit more like lightness and fun and like authenticity, and you can just create for the sake of creating.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like I said, you often love what you're doing. And there was like another book that I read. It's called The War of Art. So not The Art of War. It's like the flip of that.
I read The Art of War.
I read The War of Art.
Okay.
It's by an author called Stephen Pressfield, and he also talks about writer or creative block, writer's block, artist block, whatever it is, and approaching it with professionalism, which is another kind of perspective on it, which I thought was incredible. And it's kind of the same thing where it may be your hobby and it may be your passion, but if you want it to be your job, then treat it like your job. Because if you were employed, say, in an office job that you hated and you were told be here at like 9 a.m. every morning, you're there at 9 a.m. every morning. Why can't you apply that discipline and that professionalism to the thing that you love way more than being in the office? So like when people tell me like, oh, I really want to write a play, or I want to like create this piece of art, or I want to, you know, do a theater show or something, but I can't, like, I don't have time because like I've got a full-time job. I'm like, but you're applying professionalism and discipline to make sure you're there at your job that you don't like every day. So when you get home, like why aren't you applying that discipline to the thing that you really want to do with your life? Put in a second shift. If you love it that much, what's stopping you?
Yeah. And I always find that when you're doing something that you love, you actually get more energy once you start going. For sure. And I love what you're saying.
Because you're fulfilled. Like you literally feel so fulfilled, and then you're like, oh, I'm so happy.
Yeah. So like sometimes I'm juggling so many things, but because all these things are aligned to me, I don't feel burnt out versus, I don't know if you met me like 5 years ago, I could only do one thing and it drained me. So I had no energy for anything else. But I love what you're saying about how, because I see so much in the spirituality where there's like, oh, feminine energy and masculine energy. And like for myself, for the most of my life, I've been stuck in my masculine energy. That's why I was burnt out, all that stuff. And then I found the feminine energy and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. The feminine energy is the creative, is like the expressive, all these things. And then I kind of like went too much into the feminine energy where I just kind of I was like too afraid to do anything. But kind of what you were saying of like, you need to combine, this is what I feel like today, the masculine and the feminine. So the feminine with like the art and the expression and the creativity, but then the masculine, exactly what you're saying, of like the discipline, of like the commitment. Yeah. And then that's, though, when you merge these two things and you have a healthy balance, that's when you're able to like go through and just do crazy cool shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. So today, I know you paint a lot. Is there any themes, any messages that you have like that are coming up in your art? Is that how I don't know, like, do you have like series where you're like, oh, this series is this message or this thing? What's going on maybe right now or in the past in your art? Like what messages or things are you...
Yeah, I think with my art, it's so personal to me, and it's really always comes from what I'm personally experiencing in my life. So when I was young and I was like living in Belfast, I was living in London, but I'd grown up in Belfast, and we'd been through effectively like civil war and political unrest in my parents' generation and when I was a kid. And I didn't realize like, you know, that my generation actually have trauma from this until I left and went to London and experienced like another culture, another city. And then I would look back and there was still stuff going on in Ireland, and I would read the news about like a bomb or paramilitaries or sectarian issues, and I'd be like, oh my God, like it's actually crazy that this is still going on. And a lot of my art started to become like quite, not overtly political, but political undertones, because it was really me assessing what had happened in like my upbringing in my country. So for a long time my work would explore like the perspectives of war, the romanticism of war, and it was always subtle. And like I read a lot of poetry, a lot of literature related to like Irish history, so that would be kind of intertwined in like the message of the art. And the art would be like a lot of landscapes that had like significant like political history or had been like part of a war zone and stuff. So that was pretty heavy. That was quite dark, but I felt like I really needed to. And I'm not gonna, I don't think that's closed off forever. Like I think that could be revisited. But it was really important work to me, and it was very cathartic for me as well, because I was able to like really explore the depths of like my trauma and emotions through creating, which is such a great way to heal. And then, you know, after I traveled, when I went to Asia before Australia, I was going to like Vietnam, and I was going to like the killing fields in Cambodia, and the work was very much the same, because then I was like, oh my God, there's so many cultures that have experienced this, and it's so relevant to today as well. So this is obviously having a huge effect on like how I think about making art right now. But after that was the kind of time frame. So I'd done a lot of my political work, then I traveled, and then I was like, I don't really like, I felt quite detached from home. And I had my artist block kind of experience, and I was like, I don't know what to make. I feel like I'm now in Dubai. I have this like such a privileged, safe life. I feel that if I make political work, I'll almost be like a plastic political artist, and it'll be forced, and I don't want to ever do something that's like inauthentic. So I just didn't paint for a while. Then I went through a lot of other shit in my life. And somehow I found myself back in the studio, and I honestly don't know how. Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this in Big Magic. You get downloads of ideas. You know when an idea just pops in your head?
Oh, totally.
And I was getting these like visions in my head, out of nowhere, of like wild animals, of like strong women. And then this was like, that was my most recent collection, which you've seen.
That's I was definitely gonna ask, like, where did all these incredible big cats come up?
I had like basically went through like a really tough time in my life, and I wasn't painting. Then I came, and I think that there was some kind of download. I don't know if it was the universe or the subconscious or my artistic brain just forming like visuals from feelings that I had. But yeah, these powerful like strong animals like leopards, tigers, lions, and then these like incredibly empowered women. And beautiful women. And I think that was like me trying to find my power again, and like me representing like my own empowerment through different visuals. And there was like a lot of color. The work is really bold, and I think that was like me being like, I'm back.
I love it.
I'm back in the studio, back in life. I'm back.
I love it. And isn't one of them in like the airport or in Etihad? Or?
Yeah. So one of them was selected for the Etihad Airways 20th year anniversary. So they, there were 20 artists from the UAE to represent the country selected for this show. So that was put into their personal, like their art collection and exhibition, which was in the airport as well.
So if they want to see it, it's in the Abu Dhabi airport, or is it only for a certain time?
It's just got back to Dubai. So if you were in the airport like this week, you've just missed the boat. But a lot of people, it was really cute. Like a lot of people were with their families going through the airport, and then like sending me photos of the show and the painting. And it's great because obviously in the airport, you're reaching an international audience. You know, you've got your kind of client base here. I've got my client base sort of like in Ireland, but there's people from all over the world going through. So yeah, a lot of people were able to like see some of my recent art, which was great.
I love that. And I even just sharing kind of like your different phases when it comes to art, but I definitely think like art is so healing, and like the subconscious is all about the emotions and the things that we can't really express like logically. So when you have tools or mediums like art where you can kind of just allow that space to kind of come through, like that is so healing. So like definitely if there's any like thing like for you that, or anyone's working like trauma healing, like art
my God, it's amazing.
Art is this, but at the same, so then there's that healing part of it where you kind of was sharing that, but then this other part, like this evolution of like stepping into your power of like letting yourself be seen. And I just love like how like powerful art is, either as a healing tool or as like a oh, I'm here to fuck shit up now. Like, let's go and do stuff, and using that as like a fuel or an energy as well. And that definitely is matching the energy of like what's going on in your life and business right now. So I love that so much. So as we start to wrap up, I have a last few questions. I always, and like, I love gratitude. I know everyone, like when you get into spirituality, they're like, oh, be grateful. And everyone's like rolling my eyes. I'm like, nobody works. Like every time it does.
It really does.
So even if like you're in a yoga class with me, we end with gratitude. So I just would like to ask you, like, what are 3 things in your life that you're most grateful for?
There's a lot. Let me say more.
You can do more than 3.
No, I think I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've had in this country to be able to build the life that I have, because I'm so happy, so fulfilled. I've been like my own boss and being able to design every day how I want it for the last like 6-7 years, like full time. And some of that is hard work and, you know, I guess like a little bit of talent, but a lot of it is luck as well. Like I was lucky that someone, when I was a teacher, asked me to teach her how to paint, like after school. That's pure luck. I
feel like that's destiny or fate, but same thing. I get what you're saying.
Let me tell you, like I hated that school. We used to call that school the prison.
I have heard other teachers call that though. I might have said that about my school. I get that.
What came from the prison? Because like some days I was like, why am I here? This place is crazy. But that woman like asking me to teach her how to paint was basically like, that was the instigator of me forming Design and Dine. If she didn't ask me, would I ever have done like adult workshops to paint over like a brunch or a wine? I don't know, maybe I would have went in a different direction. So I think the good luck and the fortune that I've had here to be able to like take opportunities and build this life is number one. It sounds obvious, sounds cliche, but my health, because you get the flu 1 week, you realize how much you take your health for granted. So just to be able to like get up and run in the morning and have like a fully functioning body and not have any health issues is something that like we should all be so grateful for. And like one thing that we didn't really touch on is like, it relates to like a lot of the kind of tough times I've had, is like me losing my mum. So my mum passed away through health issues in 2020. Pre-COVID, and that was like what changed my life. Like that shook up my whole life. And before that, that's when I was like hustle, burn out. After that happened, when you lose someone, especially like your mom, it's like the most traumatizing thing. You realize that we do take our health for granted, and life isn't permanent, and you can lose someone you love at any point. And that's when I really had to like reassess like every part of my life. That's when I started running. That's when I started meditating. That's when I started doing yoga, mainly because I was trying to save like my mental health and process the grief. But then it was also about this thing of, you know, now I value my health over money, success, any other thing. I don't care, like, you know, health is the number one thing. So I
totally agree with you there. Like health is wealth for me.
If you have your health and you have your family safe and well, like you don't realize like how lucky you are.
I totally resonate.
And then number 3, I would just say the people in my life. I have great people around me right now, and they make me happy and bring me fulfillment, and we laugh every day, and it's great.
That's so amazing and so important. So before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to share about Design and Dine coming up? Any new projects people want to know about, or like something you want to tease?
So the rest of 2024 is going to be big, badass Design and Dine themed brunches. They're going to be incredible. So people need to come dressed as the theme. Yes. Okay. I love this. Come dressed. There's a theme. There's music related to the theme. The art is all really cool that you're going to create related to the theme. And then like obviously the whole brunch is like customized within that theme as well. And I mean, I'm actually working on a new collection of art. So I have my existing growing collection which has like all the women and the wild animals. And I'm looking for a venue right now to exhibit that. So that's coming in the near future. But there's a whole other collection that I'm working on.
You can share? Or no, top secret. It's top secret. Okay, it's top secret.
It's quite raw, and it's totally different from anything I've ever done or painted. Like, it is totally new for me. And then it was an experiment, and it was like a day in the studio where I had this like rush of like emotion, positive emotion, inspiration. I was like, I just need to make this work.
Oh my God. You need to tell me off camera. I can't leave without knowing, but you guys have to wait.
So yeah, that's it. And we're expanding to Saudi as well. So if anybody knows anyone in Saudi, Design and Dine will be in Saudi this year as well.
Taking over the world. The original
painting
and wine.
The best.
And the best. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for taking your time today and spending with us and sharing more about who you are as a person. You being one of the great examples of someone living their soul purpose, living their life authentically and abundantly. And thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Honestly, you're like a radiant energy, and I always love when we catch up and chat.
Thank you.